This is our first Christmas as a new church, and we sing a song like that. And it's my fault, because I did ask Ray. And I can't decide whether that is the most powerful Advent song I've ever heard, or if I never want to hear it again. And the answer is maybe both. A lot of Christmas songs that I've heard and sang over the years, I don't know that I've ever heard one that involved the words shadows, scars, wars, addiction, shame, sorrow, grief. For all the Christmas songs that have ever been written, and to go and sing a song like that, where's Joy to the World? Where's the "O come all ye faithful" with those words of joyful and triumphant? That's what we need. As I was preparing for tonight, I did a search on top Christmas songs of all time and found this one list of the top 25 heartwarming Christmas hymns. I'm going to go out on a little bit of a limb here and guess that song is not ever going to make that list. The song may offer great hope, but it is not going to offer a whole lot of warm fuzzies. And two reasons that I really wanted to sing that. For me, personally, it's pretty biographical right now. I have in recent weeks experienced a sadness and a sorrow that I've never known, I've never experienced before. I've never gotten up to preach making sure I had some tissues in my pocket just in case. Somebody asked me a couple days ago if I was out of tears, and I said, I don't know, because every time I think that well has run dry, I find that there's a reservoir of tears that I didn't even know were there yet. But second, as I've kind of been walking through all of this, I've become convinced that joy is the outcome, not the input. We tend to walk into a Christmas season and think that, you hear the music at the stores, whatever, and it's all this kind of upbeat. And yet, what I mean when I say that joy is an output, not the input, is that Jesus did not come into a world that was filled with joy and excitement. He came into a broken, hurting world, not a world that had it all together. I'm sure many of you have experienced a Christmas where you just kept saying to yourself, why can't I have a little bit of the joy that it seems everyone else around me has? And the circumstances may be different that led to that moment. A loved one had died during the course of that year, and it was your first Christmas without them. Could go on listing a variety of examples of how you get to that place, but you show up at that Christmas and wonder, where's all the joy that seems out there? Why don't I have any of that? Well, here's part of what I love about the Bible, is that it's honest engagement with the human condition. If there is an emotion that we experience, there's probably somebody in the Bible who is in that spot with it that we can look to. I think especially in the Psalms, we often see a mirror of the heartache and the sorrow that our own hearts experience. I'm going to read a few verses from Psalm 42. If any of you know anything about me, you know I'm not much of a traditionalist. I don't think I've ever heard Psalm 42 referenced in a Christmas service before. Psalm 42 starts, "As a deer pants for flowing streams, so pants my soul for you, O God. My soul thirsts for God, for the living God. When shall I come and appear before God?" Now, we hear that, and we often frame the as the deer pants for the water, so my soul longs after, in this kind of joyful celebration. But that's not what is happening for the psalmist here at all. And how do I know? Because the very next words, my tears have been my food day and night, while they say to me all the day long, where is your God? These things I remember as I pour out my soul. How I would go with the throng and lead them in procession to the house of God with glad shouts and songs of praise, a multitude keeping festival. Why are you cast down, O my soul? Why are you in turmoil within me? Hope in God, for I shall again praise him, my salvation and my God. Do you hear the longing in the psalmist's voice? He sees, almost like from a distance, he sees other people enjoying this procession of praise headed to the temple for worship, and he's far off and feels like he's got voices in his ear telling him, where's your God now? Where's your God now? Feels so far away from God, feels so far away from God's people. He longs for that. There's almost something worse than not seeing it, and that is seeing it and not being there. Kind of at this distance where it seems like that's what everyone else is experiencing, but not him. Hears all those glad shouts for whom it's going well, and it just makes him sadder that he is so far away, so alone. Instead, he's crying out words like, my tears have been my food day and night. Hearing those voices of desperation, those voices of deception that are just ringing in his ear. Where's your God now? Where's your God now? And his own honest appraisal of his own heart. Why are you downcast, O my soul? Even those words that he ends that refrain with, hope in God, feel like he's trying to convince himself of this. This is like, I know theologically the right answer right now, but like the heart's not there, trying to convince himself to believe that God will save him. Right now, feels like a longing that he doesn't know if he will ever see that longing filled. There's a series of books that I love, and a couple of you probably heard me reference it. I'm reading them through with Micah now. A series called The Green Ember. And I love these books. My nephew just paid attention because he's read them. It's a story of these rabbits who are under the oppressive rule of wolves and birds of prey led by Morbin Blackhawk, the leader of these birds of prey. But in the midst of their oppression, the rabbits cling to a promise, and they say it back and forth to one another, as if this reminder of something that they want to believe, they need to believe, but right now feels like a longing that they're not sure. And that phrase is, it will not be so in the mended wood. That is among the most beautiful statements. We look at all of that brokenness, all of that hurt, whatever it is, and we know this ain't right. And this ain't good. But it will not be so in the mended wood. That longing for that day when all that is wrong is made right, when all that is broken is fixed, all that is old is made new. That longing for sadness to be undone, that longing for oppression to be overturned. There has to be something better. The mended wood, a place of longing to see and experience all made right, all made new again. We read through some of the Christmas account from Luke's gospel throughout our service tonight. But the book of John, where we're going to look for the next few minutes, opens not with a recounting of the events of Jesus' birth, but with this picture of the significance of Jesus' birth. The picture of light into darkness. Verses 4 and 5 of chapter 1, in him, talking about Jesus, was life, and the life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. The true light, which gives light to everyone, was coming into the world. That's verse 9. Yes, it is a dark world where the light is gone, and it feels that way much of the time. Dark world that is marked by things like wars and scars and addiction and shame and sorrow and grief. St. John of the Cross in the 16th century wrote a book called The Dark Night of the Soul. Maybe this depiction, maybe that phrase is so visceral, the dark night of the soul, and maybe that rings true for you, but it certainly even seems like a depiction of the world around us. We see the wars and all of the scars and all of the weight of oppression all around us. We wonder, how deep does that darkness go? Where's the light gone? But here is the promise of Christmas. That Jesus, the light of the world, came into the world. Not the one where everything was already good, not the one where everything was already light, not where it was all holly jolly, but into the darkest place, into the broken place, into the places of oppression and grief and sorrow and war and addiction. There, that the light of the world has come. No, Jesus was not born in the dark night of just a single soul, but into the dark night of a broken, hurting world. That song ends, where the light is gone, there may Christ be born. Beautiful. Incredible. It's our only hope. We pick up again in John 1, looking at verses 9 to 12 here. The true light, which gives light to everyone, was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made through him, yet the world did not know him. He came to his own, and his people did not receive him. But to all who did receive him, who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. Tonight, I think for each of us comes the invitation of John 1. See, the message is not simply that Jesus came as light into a dark world. It's that we are invited into the light with him. No matter what darkness is overtaking you, no matter what sorrow and sadness is burdening you, you are invited now, tonight, into the light of the world. John does something that's really bonkers to me in his gospel. He plays with this imagery of light and dark throughout his whole gospel. And he says, he tracks Jesus saying, I am the light of the world. And a few verses later, he says, you are the light of the world. And I look and I'm like, I don't know how those two things are the same. How could Jesus, who is be the light of the world, and then turn around and say to us that we are the light of the world? And the only answer is that we've been invited into the light with him. Not that we become the light, but that we are invited into the light of Christ. Here's an important caveat. It doesn't mean that all sorrow and grief and sadness goes away. It does mean something much, much greater, though. It makes you his. The psalmist described this longing to be near to God. The promise of Christmas is not that you are going to figure out how to get near to God, but that he came to be near you. That he came to you and for you, and is inviting you into his light. He, the light of the world, comes to you. He meets you in those moments of sorrow and sadness. He meets you in that broken, hurting world. See, this season leading up to Christmas is often referred to as Advent. Advent simply means waiting. That we are waiting for something to come, something to happen. And Advent reminds us that even as we wait for Christmas to come, we are waiting for something else. We are waiting for the day when words like scars and wars and sorrow and grief and addiction and shame are gone forever and ever. We are waiting for the day when Jesus comes back the second time. We are waiting for the new creation that he brings. That even in the name of our fledgling church was this proclamation that new creation is coming. That it will not be so in the mended wood. That right now we wait for that to be true. We do it sometimes in moments of joy and a lot of times in moments of sorrow and sadness. But then will be joy to the world forever. But even as we wait for that day, we do so as those who have been invited into the light of Christ. Those who have been called children of God. Because where the light is gone, there Christ was born. So until then, we wait. We wait with hope because it was Jesus who was born into that broken, hurting world. As I conclude tonight, I want to do so with two promises guaranteed by the birth of Jesus for us. The first is that he will surely come again to bring that new creation that our souls long for. I mentioned earlier that book series, the Green Ember, and how much I've appreciated that. I grew up loving the Chronicles of Narnia, and the Green Ember is the first series that I've ever read that even begins to go up and against the Chronicles of Narnia. And for me, I love it. And I'm in the middle of kind of listening through the audiobooks of the Chronicles of Narnia right now. The Genesis story of Narnia is a book called The Magician's Nephew. And in The Magician's Nephew, this boy Diggory, the nephew, is sent by magic and ends up in Narnia at the very foundation of Narnia as Aslan the lion sings the world into existence. Now, this is important to know about Diggory. Diggory was full of sorrow and grief. His mother was at death's edge. Couldn't get out of bed, and the doctors had basically were at a level of kind of comfort care for his mom. And so you got this little boy whose mom is dying, and he's just overwhelmed with the sadness and grief. This is the part I wasn't sure how I was going to hold it together. And he comes, and here he is at the foundation of Narnia. And he comes for the first time face to face with Aslan the lion. And it says, up until then, he had been looking at the lion's great feet and the huge claws on them. Now in his despair, he looked up at his face. What he saw surprised him as much as anything in his whole life. For the tawny face was bent down near his own. And wonder of wonders, great shining tears stood in the lion's eyes. They were such big, bright tears compared with Diggory's own, that for a moment he felt as if the lion really must be sorrier about his mother than he was himself. That, my friends, is a great hope. Whatever sorrow, whatever brokenness, whatever sadness and grief you have or you are experiencing, He cares more about it than you do. His tears are bigger than yours. For however much you desire to experience joy to the world, He desires it for you more. For all the longing for the world to be made right that you may feel, He longs more for that day. And here at the story of the birth of Jesus, the story of light into darkness, is a story that God will make all things right. Again, Jesus did not come into a world full of light and joy and gladness and happiness. He came into a world that was dark and sad and full of sorrow. And He came as the light who casts away all darkness. Tonight, let us be people who look to hope, to the light of the world, who will cast out all darkness and invites us with Him into that marvelous light. Let's pray. Lord, I come knowing the sadness of my own heart, even knowing the things that weigh on some others in this room, and not knowing what weighs on the hearts of many others in this room, and yet knowing that for where the light is gone, there Christ was born. That Jesus, the light of the world, has come and has invited us into that light to be His very own. We thank You that that is the great promise of Christmas. And Lord, we do so rejoicing in this Christmas as we long for the day when You come back again, make all things right, all that sorrow and sadness and worries and scars and addiction and grief, all of those words are past tense forever. Where we are with the light of the world.